Of course, let's now take you to Chicago, and this is where thousands, including former U.S. presidents and civil rights leaders, are gathering to remember the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson. We are monitoring that for you, and in studio I am joined by SABC specialist correspondent Sophie Mokoena to monitor those proceedings as they are expected to get underway this evening as we speak. And Sophie, of course, a number of presidents here expected to make their way to Chicago to honor the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson.
What we do know, and when you look at the program, it will be mainly former heads of state of United States of America, starting with former President Bill Clinton, also the former President Barack Obama, former President Joe Biden. The person who's missing is the current president, President Donald Trump. But the three former presidents will be there, and they will address those who will be gathered at that event where they will be honoring Reverend Jesse Jackson. We saw many people who have arrived, including those who are prominent leaders of religion in the United States of America. We also expect many choirs, to render items, because you know that he was a religious man, and therefore the congregations, not only one, would want to contribute towards bidding him a farewell. And then tomorrow, a private family burial. It will then be attended by the South African president, that is President Cyril Ramaphosa. He will also speak at that funeral, and therefore that speaks to the relationship between South Africa and also Reverend Jesse Jackson, because he supported the struggle and he was a friend to the governing party at that time since 1994 to 2024, where you saw that formation of the government of national unity. And therefore, the family wanted someone very senior from South Africa to come. And therefore, the president is now in the United States of America. Tomorrow, he will deliver the message on behalf of South Africa, and I guess on behalf of the continent of Africa and those oppressed nations, but secondly, the developing South, because he was a friend to the marginalized.
And talking about the marginalized, Sophie, also would know that Reverend Jesse Jackson was a national symbol of black political power, particularly to those living in America, and also helping lay down the ground for the likes of Barack Obama. And we'd know that Barack Obama, being the former U.S. president, also the first black U.S. president.
You are correct. He led the way. You would recall that it was in 1984 where he contested to be a nominee for the Democrats to contest the presidential elections. He didn't get the nod, and he tried again in 1988, contesting to be a nominee for the Democrats, but unfortunately he couldn't make it again. And later that message did resonate with the Americans when Barack Obama contested the nomination within the Democrats. He got nominated and he contested the presidential elections in the United States of America, and he became the first black president in the United States of America. And therefore, during the campaign, during the nomination, and up to the campaign of elections, Reverend Jesse Jackson was supporting his candidature. And therefore, there was that moment for him, you'd recall, crying during the inauguration of President Barack Obama at that time, because finally, what he stood for, what he fought for, even though he didn't achieve that, but at least at that moment, it was a moment to celebrate to African Americans and people of color that now you have a person who represents those people and that group, and therefore he was very happy. And we know that President Obama at that time even spoke about the struggle of those who were marginalized in the United States of America, the civil rights movement, acknowledged the role played by Martin Luther King Jr. and also people like Reverend Jesse Jackson, and therefore acknowledging that they paved way for him to finally make it to the highest office in the United States of America. And therefore, it is not surprising that today we are going to hear from Barack Obama, the orator, and you can imagine the speech that he is going to deliver. But you also have President Clinton, who wanted to appoint him to be the ambassador on the continent, but he declined that nomination and the request from President Clinton. On the other hand, we'll hear from the former President Joe Biden. You'd recall that he worked side by side with President Barack Obama, and he was the vice president. And therefore, one expects the three former leaders of the United States of America to weigh in on the current global challenges
Sophie,
and the role of
I'm going to
the
have
US.
to pause you there for a moment.